So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the third episode of the Know How podcast. Today, I'm going to briefly discuss about one of the best concepts for survival as teens in the year 2025. Now, today, as you can see, I'm not with my co-host, and I really don't have a guest, but I know this is going to be successful. So don't forget to hit that subscription button, like, and share. Let's dive in. My name is Samuel Kariak. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and follow our socials so that you can get content of this sort. So today we are going to definitely talk about those particular concepts or those particular vices that people undergo, and there is that particular vice that every person or every man hates. There is that particular thing that you hate, and it's that particular thing that keeps you moving. So in this particular podcast, we are going to discuss on what is this particular thing that keeps you moving. Now, there are some instances that makes you change the way you live, the way you do things, because there's that particular thing that you really think it makes you irritated, and from that particular thing makes you move in a given manner. For example, I have heard of stories that there are some guys that work hard, do a lot of jobs to avoid poverty. Poverty is that particular thing that makes them moving. Others are competition. There's that particular person who does a lot of things because he wants to be better than someone else. That is definitely competition. So in this particular episode, I've come up with some ways of how to make sure that you are in your lines when it comes to business, jobs, or your career. What are these particular things that will keep you moving? So I talked of positive competition and poverty. How does your background influence your result in the job industry, in the business area, or in the real world? How does competition influence you in the job area and in the world? So let us start with poverty. There's this story that is told of a young man who was brought up in a very, very humble background, and this particular guy I did not like the conditions of their home. So, for example, when he was being taken to school, the guy talks of being taken to school with only one piece of uniform, while the other students have up to 5 pieces of uniform. Again, the same gentleman is being taken to school without shopping, basic need shopping, but the rest have even foods, snacks, and much more. So this particular thing makes this guy really hates where he's coming from. So from these experiences, the guy keeps narrating that when he was in school, people were treating him differently because of specifically where this guy is coming from. And from that, when the guy keeps on growing, he narrates that from where he's coming from his social status, from the condition that he is in, even finding soulmates out there becomes a problem. And so this particular guy decides that I will not take this particular kind of lifestyle. So the guy decides to isolate himself, maybe in the university, and not going home when it comes to holidays because of this particular kind of trying to run away from where this guy is coming from. So the guy keeps narrating when he started an affiliate marketing program. He started with a very small team of around 2, then keeps on moving, growing the platform up to a point where they become around 15 members, and now 15 members is actually a very big business. So the guy narrates on failures and successes that are motivated from where this particular guy is coming from. So we can see how poverty is influencing this particular person to change their kind of lifestyle. So there's some guys that when you hear their stories, they keep on saying that they do whatever they do because they really hate poverty. So poverty is actually something that drives people towards what they are. When you see someone successful, try to figure out the kind of problem or the kind of life he has been living before, and from there you will see that there is a particular factor that makes him be who he is. When you find these guys who have fancy homes, a lot of big cars, you have to hear that from them there's a story, there's something that drives them to become what they are, and one of them is the poverty that originates from the background. So this thing is sometimes challenging because there are some guys in the real world that we live that comes from a poor background and end up being poor, but there are some guys that comes up brought up from a very poor background and end up being very rich. So it depends with the kind of a person you are. It depends with the force that drives you to be who you are. There is someone who is very comfortable from where he's coming from, but there are those that see the kind where they're coming from is becoming a big problem. So they decide to follow a very, very different way from where they are coming from, and that is actually what influences their life, maybe positively or negatively. Another thing is competition. There are some guys that actually grow financial wise, spiritual wise, and in social life due to positive or negative competition. For example, you have heard that there are these particular guys who are doing some businesses that you really don't understand and are making a lot of money. When they come, they park these particular German machines, these big cars, and this particular thing makes you think that what do these particular people do that I don't do, so that you also be in that line. So there's something that makes you work hard in your business, in maybe your job. You try as much as you can so that you can fit into their shoes. So this is what we call positive competition. You compete with someone who has done something good for you also to be good. There are those that actually have what we call negative competition, whereby someone just compete with anyone because he is jealous of what that particular other person is. So this particular forces makes you move from one step to another. These particular forces makes you move from one point to another. Why? Because you really need to do something to fit into a given group that you really admire. So something that also comes in is what we call admiration. You admire something, then you work on it. But there is this particular thing that actually has been proven real, that when you really want something and you really want it so much, there is that particular thing known as the law of attraction. You really need something. You can even maybe have pictures of this particular thing that you need. Most of the time you keep on looking at this thing, you look at it, you admire. Whenever you work while you know you are working for this particular thing, and this thing actually happen. So admiration comes in there, that you admire something, you really admire it to some extent that you really feel that you need this particular item. So from there you are able to acquire this thing, because everything you do to achieve that particular goal. So ladies and gentlemen, it has been amazing, and if you really need to make it in a given area, there must be something that drives you to achieve this particular goal that you need. You cannot just wake up in the morning and sit there thinking that one day maybe millions of money, a lot of achievement in business, in the job place comes in a silver platter. People work from scratch to becoming the top in that particular area. There is that particular thing that makes them move from one point to another. This can be either competition, admiration, or the background. In the business world and schooling, I'm going to relate between business world and schooling. Now, you have seen that most of the students, when they are in high school, they usually have a lot of big dreams. and everybody knows that these particular high school kids actually have very big dreams. They want to be pilots, some wants to be engineers, but it happens that most of them actually do not follow this particular career they want, because when it comes to completing studies in Kenya, you're supposed maybe to achieve a certain particular grade for you to undertake a given course. So many of these particular students, whenever they complete school, it happens that they take different fields. Why? Because of the grading. But there's this particular thing that a certain guy admired when he was maybe in high school, primary school, or even the pre-levels of primary school, and it becomes a challenge to many of maybe parents, stakeholders. Why does the world has to take someone to a different way than that particular way this guy wanted? Now, I've been trying to observe that the kind of passion you have and reality sometimes are very different. Passion and reality are different. You really like something, you love something, you enjoy doing that particular thing without being disturbed. But that results to what we call passion, but there is what we call reality. When you get to the world, you start figuring out, is this thing working? For example, you have gone to high school, you've completed, you've gone to university, you've completed, then you come to the job market. There's this particular course that you've been doing, you really like it. So when you go to the job market, that's when you come and relate that this particular course has a lot of input. For example, this particular even course does not have jobs in this particular country, yet you have graduated from that particular course. Remember, when you are doing that particular course, every time you enjoy, you revise, you do exams, you take a lot of your time doing this particular course. That is passion. But reality comes in when you have completed schooling and now it is time to look for a job related to your course. Then you can find out that that particular course does not even employ in your country. So what do? Most of these guys, you find them, someone starts maybe a small business due to disparity. Some of people drift from that particular area and join other careers. For example, you did engineering, you entered being a teacher. Some do, depending on the kind of course you've done. So reality try to separate people from passion. And what these particular people need to understand is, what does reality require? What do we have? The system that we have right now doesn't actually try to identify the reality field, the real field versus the imagined field. Remember, I quote, the imagined field. The system does not recognize or does not talk about the real field versus the imagined field, because this particular system that we're using now is the system that originates from the colonial era. Remember, the colonialists brought education that favored them in their countries, but their level of development is totally different from the kind of development we have here. So when it comes to these particular courses, the courses that were being done was to enlighten people to work for this particular European who have this particular kind of employment. Now the European is gone. It is us as the Africans and our real Africa. Now, if you do this particular course that has favors on the other part of the world, the colonialist part of the world, it becomes so hard for you to do what? To survive in this particular country. And that's why you find now this particular kind of problems recurring every time. People complaining that I have done a course and it is not paying me something. I have done a course and I'm not getting a particular job. So the system that we have does not acknowledge the kind of or the nature of the jobs that are outside here. The system just allows you to study anything in general, but does not acknowledge the kind of jobs that are outside here. That's why we have this kind of problems. So what do I suggest, or what do you suggest as the viewer? This is, according to me, I think this particular system should try to provide content that relates to the kind of job industry that we have locally. For example, let engineering major on simple works like construction, road construction, railway construction, things that we can see each and every day, because this is the kind of jobs that we are coming to look for. Now, instead of teaching people maybe mechanical engineering, and we don't make cars in this particular country, why can't you teach these people electrical engineering to solve simple electrical problems, like problems that are there each and every day? Why do you teach children aviation, yet the number of aeroplanes that are in the country are very few? So that's why you find that a person has done a course and completed a course, but when it comes to construction, engineers are coming from the outside world. The constructors, the contractors, these particular people are coming from different countries, because we don't believe in ourselves and we don't believe in the content that we give to our students. So it becomes a very big problem for these particular graduates to survive. Another thing is the nature of the syllabus that we have. The syllabus is very static. But the world itself is dynamic. Every day things are changing. For example, remember back in the years there were no computers, but right now majority of the jobs are done online. Tutoring is done online. Everything is done online because of the evolvement of the world. So the syllabus that we teach here is not compatible to the changes that are coming to the real world. For example, that's why you find that some teachers in schools teach purely in an analog manner, yet these particular students understand the digital manner and they learn faster than their teachers. It takes them a little time to learn particular skills than the teacher who is presenting, because the teacher is too analog while the students are very digital. So it becomes a very big problem. We have to recommend on the evolvement of the world, the current world we live. What do we have? What do we need? What does the world need us to have? What does the world recommend us to have? How do we survive in the real world we are? Number two, we also have to predict the changes that will happen in future. For example, when a child who is in grade 2 right now, and the kind of studies that he's taking, the syllabus quotes the kind of lifestyle we are in. But we forget that this particular child, by the time this particular child is going to complete school, the system and the kind of life will be 100% different from what we are right now. So why should this particular syllabus acknowledge such kind of changes? So ladies and gentlemen, it has been amazing. See you in the comment section. We discuss different topics when it comes to the world of tech, job industry, marketing, and much more. See you in the next episode. Thank you, and make sure you subscribe.